Meet Tommy and Mr. Whiskers. Tommy was a mischievous boy. He liked to play pranks. Mr. Whiskers was his teacher. Mr. Whiskers was a funny guy. He had a bushy mustache. It twitched when he talked. Tommy's class was always interesting. Mr. Whiskers tried to teach. Tommy tried to make everyone laugh. They were quite a pair. It was a Tuesday. The sun was shining brightly, casting a warm glow over everything. Birds were singing melodious tunes, perched on the tree branches, creating a perfect start to the day. The sky was a clear blue, with not a cloud in sight, promising a beautiful day ahead. The school building stood tall and welcoming, with children eagerly entering its doors, ready for another day of learning and fun. The windows of the school gleamed in the sunlight, reflecting the excitement and energy of the students. Inside one of the classrooms, Mr. Whiskers was passionately teaching about volcanoes, explaining the fascinating process of how they erupt. However, Tommy, a curious and imaginative boy, was not paying attention. His mind was wandering, and he found himself daydreaming as he gazed out the window. Tommy's thoughts drifted to his lunch. He could almost taste the delicious peanut butter and jelly sandwich waiting for him. He imagined himself sitting on a bench, enjoying every bite of his favorite meal. The thought of the creamy peanut butter and sweet jelly made his mouth water. It was his favorite sandwich, and he couldn't wait to eat it during lunch break. The anticipation was almost too much to bear. Suddenly, a strange smell filled the room, snapping Tommy out of his daydream. It was an odd, unpleasant odor that seemed to come out of nowhere. The students began to look around, puzzled and slightly alarmed. It smelled like rotten eggs. Mr. Whiskers stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening in surprise. He sniffed the air, trying to identify the source of the foul smell. The classroom fell silent as everyone waited to see what would happen next. The tension was broken by the sound of giggles. The kids couldn't help but laugh at the unexpected turn of events. The strange smell had turned an ordinary lesson into a memorable moment, one that they would talk about for days to come. The smell got stronger. It was unbearable. The children in the schoolyard began to look around, their faces scrunched up in disgust. Some of them covered their noses with their hands, while others tried to move away from the source of the stench. It was a smell unlike any other, a mix of rotten eggs and something even worse. The teachers, who were supervising the recess, also began to notice the foul odor. They exchanged puzzled glances, wondering what could possibly be causing such a terrible smell. Mr. Whiskers pinched his nose. He was the science teacher, known for his keen sense of smell. He had never encountered anything like this before. He walked around the playground trying to locate the source of the odor. The smell seemed to be everywhere, making it difficult to pinpoint its origin. Mr. Whiskers' eyes began to water, and he had to take a step back to catch his breath. "What is that awful smell?" he asked, his voice muffled by the handkerchief he had pressed to his nose. The other teachers shrugged, equally baffled. They had never experienced anything like this during recess before. The children, sensing the teacher's confusion, began to whisper among themselves, trying to figure out what was going on. The kids pointed at each other. "It's not me!" one of them shouted. "I didn't do anything!" another protested. The accusations flew back and forth, but no one seemed to know where the smell was coming from. The playground was filled with the sound of children arguing and teachers trying to calm them down. Nobody wanted to be blamed. Tommy just grinned. He stood off to the side, watching the chaos unfold with a mischievous twinkle in his eye. He knew something that the others didn't. He had been planning this for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment to execute his prank. He knew exactly what it was. He had spent hours researching the perfect recipe for a stink bomb, and he had finally perfected it. He had hidden it in his desk, waiting for the right time to set it off. Today was the day. He had put a stink bomb in his desk. It was a small, unassuming object, but it packed a powerful punch. He had carefully placed it in the back of his desk where no one would find it. He had planned to set it off after school, when everyone was gone. It was supposed to go off after school. He had timed it perfectly, or so he thought, but something had gone wrong. The stink bomb had gone off early, filling the entire schoolyard with its foul odor. Tommy watched as the teachers and students tried to figure out what had happened, a satisfied smile on his face, but it seemed to have other plans. Instead of going off after school, it had decided to make its presence known during recess. Tommy's eyes widened in surprise as he realized what had happened. He hadn't expected the stink bomb to go off so soon, but as he watched the chaos unfold, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. His prank had worked, even if it hadn't gone exactly as planned. "Tommy!" Mr. Whiskers exclaimed. "Did you do this?" Tommy tried to look innocent. "No, Mr. Whiskers," he said, "it wasn't me." But Mr. Whiskers didn't believe him. He knew Tommy too well. "Tommy," Mr. Whiskers said sternly, "tell the truth." Tommy sighed. Okay, he said, "it was me, but it was an accident." Mr. Whiskers sighed. "Tommy, you need to be more careful," he said. "Now help me find this stink bomb." They searched the classroom, under desks, behind bookshelves. The smell was making their eyes water, but the stink bomb was nowhere to be found. "Where could it be?" Mr. Whiskers asked. Tommy shrugged. He was starting to get worried himself. Suddenly, Mr. Whiskers jumped back. He had stepped on something squishy. He looked down, and there, stuck to the bottom of his shoe, was the stink bomb. It had fallen out of his desk earlier. Tommy couldn't help himself. He started to laugh. Mr. Whiskers looked at the stink bomb, then he looked at Tommy, and then he started to laugh too. The whole class erupted in laughter. It was one of those moments that would be remembered for years to come. The kind of laughter that starts small, like a ripple in a pond, and then grows and grows until it becomes a tidal wave of giggles and guffaws. The children couldn't contain themselves, their faces turning red, tears streaming down their cheeks. It was pure, unadulterated joy. Even Mr. Whiskers couldn't stay mad. At first, he tried to maintain his stern teacher facade, but it quickly crumbled. He chuckled, then laughed, and finally, he was laughing just as hard as the kids. His laughter was a deep, hearty sound that seemed to come from his very soul. It was infectious, and soon everyone was laughing together, united in their shared amusement. He learned a valuable lesson that day. Sometimes the best way to deal with a situation is to find the humor in it. Life is too short to be taken too seriously all the time. Mr. Whiskers realized that he could connect with his students on a deeper level through shared laughter and joy. It was a revelation that changed his approach to teaching forever. Never underestimate the power of a good stink bomb. It may seem like a simple, silly prank, but it has the potential to bring people together in the most unexpected ways. The kids had planned it as a joke, but it ended up being a bonding experience for the entire class. They learned that laughter can break down barriers and create lasting memories, especially when it's stuck to your shoe. Mr. Whiskers had to admit, it was a clever prank. The sight of him trying to discreetly scrape the stink bomb off his shoe while maintaining his dignity was something the kids would never forget. It was a moment of vulnerability that made him more human in their eyes. From that day on, whenever the class smelled something funny, they looked at Mr. Whiskers' shoes first. It became a running joke, a shared secret that brought them closer together. And Tommy? Well, he learned that sometimes, even the best pranks backfire. He had intended to be the class clown, but he ended up learning a lesson in humility. It was a valuable experience that taught him about the consequences of his actions and the importance of thinking things through. But they make for a hilarious story. The tale of the stink bomb and Mr. Whiskers' shoe became a legend in the school, retold countless times with embellishments and laughter. It was a reminder that sometimes the best memories are made from the most unexpected moments.